getting to I believe and changing it to something else, it's a long, slow process of hard work, isn't it?
No. You're a passionate creative, and so are we. Join me, Brie Stockwell, and my podcast partner, Len Metcalf, as we navigate the ups and downs of living creative lives while teaching you how to do it too. Time to pull back the curtain on our creative affair. Hey everyone, I'm Brie, and I'm here with Len. I have that little clicky going on in my mouth again.
You need to do your mouth and speaking exercises
I
before
don't
you
know.
come
I
on.
need like gum or something.
I don't do them.
It's like my mouth is sticking together and it's making little clicks. It's no bueno.
I think that's not. I think that's a little bit dehydrated, Brie.
Well, maybe, but I mean, I had a liter. And I just had tea. Anyway, I've had a lot of liquids today. A lot.
Do people mind us having these little funny little rants at the beginning of our podcast, do you think?
I'm going to say no because they still listen. Does anyone mind if I chew gum in the microphone? Just kidding. Truthfully, we've been traveling, and so I got home last night, and it kind of feels like a little bit of a travel hangover. And not much. I'm just a little tired, but my voice feels like a little scratchy,
Because you spoke a lot while you were away traveling.
I don't know. I think just being in the car in different environments. And you know what it could be? One of the reasons that we leave at the end of December, or we like to leave, excuse me, I still have my gum, is because there's some big allergies here with like the cedar juniper trees. And I wonder if now that I'm back and I slept overnight, and I'm breathing in some pollen, if that's kind of affecting my voice. I have a little bit of a vocal fry going on.
So in the middle of winter, the trees give out pollen. Interesting.
Right?
Very, very interesting.
Yeah,
No wonder you went to the snow.
And it's not like it's dead winter here. It's really like 60s. It's still mild. And so I don't know why they do it now. I have no idea. I just have no idea. But yeah. So it spiked a few days ago and we were gone, and that was good because my husband deals with it. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. But we're back, and maybe that's why my throat is scratchy. But today we're going to talk about beliefs. We have a whole list. You guys know that we always are writing down topics even while we're talking, which could happen today. But and then we usually get together and go, what do we feel like talking about? And so this is one of them, beliefs. And so here we are. We're going to talk about beliefs, and I'm actually going to release this right away. So there won't be a lot of lag between what we talk about now and when you're hearing it.
Hopefully that never matters, because it's about the concept rather than something around dates and times, isn't it? So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't find that ever matters. So you might get one that we record in December, audience friends. You might get one that we record in December, and then in 2 months you might get one that we recorded like back in September. So, but the information is still the same. It doesn't all change, and we don't feel like we have to release things chronologically.
Okay, so Brie, why do you believe that that's okay? We're going to talk about beliefs today, so let's get straight into there. Why is that okay? It's okay for me, by the way.
By the way, everyone, Len has sidled up to his microphone and he's like staring at me. I love it. You got all prepared. Yes. Because I believe that this podcast it's a creative work. It's part of our creative work. And I think that more and more I'm releasing ideas of what things should be, or what other people have done that, that seems like normal. A lot of people have done that. And I think you feel the same way, that more and more my creative work is like, or in my creative work, I'm like, I don't think I have to do it like everybody or anybody else does. And so, letting that go, or believing that I can do whatever I want and it doesn't matter, is how I think that's really great. I think that kind of serves me. Although I wonder if it hinders us too, or hinders me in some way. I'm curious about that. I don't think so, but who knows?
It's fascinating because we don't really know how everyone else makes their podcasts,
Right.
even though we might have asked them or talked to them about it. But as consumers of podcasts, by listening to them, we are actually making assumptions and creating our own worldview about what it should be. And the reality is very, very different. And I think you're very right there. It's a creative process. We're making something creatively, and we're enjoying doing that and relaxing to the creative process and following our interests in terms of what should we record today, what are we actually thinking about and interested in today,
Mhm.
is just the same as making art about something and setting it aside and then later down the track, um, not necessarily returning to one because it's in chronological order, but grabbing one because it captures your attention and your motivation to finish it. Like, oh, I want to edit this one today. It's really speaking to me today. And there's no better thing than to do that, is to actually follow where the energy is rather than this. It's not actually even a belief, it's an imaginary projection of what it should be. Following where the energy is and pursuing that, I think gives us a better result and gives you a better result. It gives me a better result. It works.
Yeah. I enjoy making this a lot more than than I did at the first, like the first episodes. That doesn't mean to say that I didn't enjoy it then. I just enjoy it more now. I think I'm more comfortable. I mean, obviously I'm more comfortable.
And you just say whatever you think now, don't you?
Well, right. Yes, exactly. But also, like, at the beginning, I mean, poor thing, you must have felt very stifled, because I was like, we have to have an agenda, like a little list of what we're going to talk about when. And I had like my whole list. And now, like, if you go back and listen to the early ones, it's very much that. I actually think they're still totally valid, and I think what we talked about is still absolutely great. However, I think the more recent ones, uh, just the act of making them feels also very creative. And so you're getting we don't really have. It's not that we, I was going to say, it's not that we don't prepare for the podcast. It's that we're always preparing for the podcast by what we do. And so pulling out a topic that feels really great to us allows us to create something that feels very fresh, and we have the energy to do it. So when I said beliefs, it's because I'm actually working a lot on beliefs right now, like helping others with their beliefs and working on my personal beliefs. And you know
It's interesting because I am too. And I didn't tell you that before we started.
that
Um,
is hilarious. Do, do, do,
I've
do.
been I've been studying very hard, and it started with Bo Lotto, and is that his name? And his incredible work in his book that I was listening to last year about how everything we run through our perception, that
Mm.
absolutely everything is an assumption based on history of what's happened before. Even just walking down the road, we assume that the road is going to be hard and that we'll take our step, and we keep walking based on the assumption that it was like that yesterday and it was like that last time we walked, and oh, it's a road. Um, but that's actually an assumption. And that blew my mind away as the further I started to unpack that. And of course, it's obvious as well. But from our intellectual minds and living awake in our brains each day in our bodies, we forget that so easily, don't we? We think that what we see is truth, what we feel is truth. We think everything is factual, and actually, it's really far from that. It's what we believe and what we imagine and what we think is true.
It's a one big giant story. I think you're right. I mean, not I think you're right. You are totally right. It's so beliefs are so interesting because they uh it- so here's my definition of a belief. A belief is a thought you just think over and over again. And sometimes you can do it on purpose, and sometimes it's just one that you've been conditioned to think, like from wherever you got it from, society, your family, yourself. Maybe you had a thought one day and you said, "Oh, I thought I like how that is," and you just keep thinking it, and then it feels true. Like, I've questioned a lot of beliefs I've questioned a lot of beliefs that weren't working for me. I discovered that they weren't working for me, and so. And then I'm like, wait a minute, these aren't facts. They felt very factual. And so you're right. Beliefs can feel very factual, but they're really our story about whatever it is, even our story about the sidewalk. So if you can relate all of this to your creative work, because so we all have beliefs about ourselves and our abilities, or we know how we have to do it, or whatever it is.
That book I was talking about is Bo Lotto,
How do you spell it?
Deviate.
How do you spell it?
Beau
Okay.
Lotto. Deviate, the science of seeing differently. And being a visual artist, I found his way of talking about it incredibly insightful. I listened to it on one of those apps, Audible or something, and he actually reads it, so that's really absolutely lovely touch. But he's really interested in perception, and that sort of started to, because he's talking about visual perception so much and how our eyes and brains work. I found that incredibly engaging, and that led me down a path. And someone gave me a Joe Dispenza book many years ago, and it sat on my shelf for a very, very long time. And then, as the year's coming to a close and the new year starts, I actually started to read it, and started again to think back about my beliefs and how much they interfere with what I'm doing, who I am, and fascinated with this idea is, how do I change them? How do I actually change these beliefs that get in my way? Or how do I manifest them?
So one of the things I wanted to say about beliefs is actually so often, because I'm doing this work right now, it's so fresh on my mind. So often, I think we think that if we just change, if we're stuck somewhere, we just change what we do, or how we act or whatever. Like I just need to do X, Y, Z. If only, I could do X, Y, Z. And what I know that I've also proven to myself is we can't just do things to change or to elicit some sort of result that we want. It all has to start with a belief or with our thinking. And I think so often we skip that. Like we think, oh, I just need to believe positively. But really, there's something in our heads that's kind of, nagging us that looks like maybe like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I can't, This is the thing that's stopping me. And because it feels so factual, we think we just have to like make more money or do this one thing that will change that. Like, if only I had more time, if only I could, you know, if only I had more time, if I could just create more time, then things would turn out differently. But really what's stuck is that we believe that we don't have enough, or that we're not capable of, or that the universe hasn't provided enough time for us. So changing wherever we're stuck, changing our belief about it is for me, absolutely imperative. Sorry, did I just go on a tirade a little bit?
I'm interested to know how we change that. But before we do that, I was just having a conversation last night with somebody, and I was bragging, if I'm going to be honest. I was, talking about how I've managed to give up sugar and how healthy that is for me and how much of a poison it is and how quickly my life is changing around that. And I mentioned it to them, and they immediately, their first words is, I could not do that.
Mm.
I could not live without sugar. And I think I would have believed that as well. Only, a few months ago, and it wasn't until the doctor said, oh, you're nearly diabetic, you need to do something about this, that I had that life scare. And I dropped it out of my diet. And then I researched and researched and researched and researched to keep reinforcing the importance of dropping it. And it was actually really easy. It was really, really easy. And it wasn't easy because of my addiction to it. I used to sit there and eat a whole packet of chocolate and biscuits in a night every night, which is what made me sick. And I would have said the same thing. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. And I'd replaced one addiction with another. Like lollies was a way to replace smoking when I gave up smoking. And there was this change in belief. And then
Wait.
I don't know how I did it.
What was the change?
Well, part of it was a health scare, but there was the other part was the determination, like all the information I already knew. Like I knew how bad sugar is. I know it's a poison. I know it's hidden in all our foods.
Okay, so they're thinking like, I have to do this. This will help me be healthy.
Well, I've always wanted to do it, but I've always made these excuses like, oh, I couldn't do that. Oh, that's my, I use that when I have a lolly when I want to have a cigarette. Like there were all these little things that weren't actually true, but I would hang on to them.
Mm.
They were beliefs. And this biggest one was I couldn't do it. And I would, fall back into it and into the temptation or whatever it is. And I would keep breaking this, this thought about becoming more healthy. And then there was this moment of this determination where I shifted, and it pivoted it around this health scare. Like I went to the doctor going, I'm sick. I know that there's something really badly wrong with me. Can you help me figure out what it was? And it was complicated. Like there was vitamin D deficiency, and I also have a bacteria living in my stomach, which is causing IBS and all sorts of things.
So exciting.
To find out answers to all of these things and suddenly have all my health issues just lift by taking probiotics, taking vitamin D and dropping sugar, I'm a different person. And that belief that I can't do it actually had this moment of shifting. And now I don't even question it. Like it's a total shift in my mind about, this is incredible. This is a new life that you found. And it's taken a long while, but my mental health has improved too.
Mm.
And now that my mental health is improving, I start the new year. It's only the 4th of January today. And suddenly I'm working harder at things that I've been putting off for years and years that I know I need to be doing. Like there's this huge repercussions around a tiny little shift is that instead of saying I can't do that or I need it or that's impossible or that's my comfort food or whatever those little things to changing that belief. I love to know how I did it. Like it was feels like
I'm going to guess. Okay, you can tell me if you think this is, I love to guess these things. You can tell me if this feels right. Okay. So I think when the doctor was like, you have to do this, then I think you probably immediately were like, still you had that belief, like, nah, that's impossible. And then you came home and you're like, what if it were? Like, what would that look like? Do I really need to, like, first you went and did a bunch of research, and then through it, I think the belief became it could be possible to cut out sugar. I don't think you were thinking it on purpose, by the way. I think this was just like subconscious. What do you think about that? I have more, but what do you think about that initial one?
oh well the subconscious had been working on it for years because I've been studying it and I've been interested in it. Like I'm very interested in what we eat and all the toxins in our life. You know, petrol fumes, all sorts of things, microplastics. So that interest in that has been there for a very long time. But this finding out that my sickness was partly caused by it and it was dangerously unhealthy, that was the little bit that flicked. Like I'm going to go and do something about this.
Yeah.
And when I walked out of there, I didn't have because she gave me the doctor's advice. Go on a Mediterranean diet. You need to exercise more, and I'm like, I'm already doing 15 k's a day. Like that's it's not exercise, and it's not a Mediterranean diet. There's something else going on here, and I did more research to come up with my own conclusion on that.
What if the thinking was, I don't know how I'm going to do it? Wait. Hang on a second. I had a little thought. It was, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like you already had the thought, like I need to, like this is going to happen no matter what, because even if it's really hard, but maybe the next belief was like, I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. And you had that belief in yourself that you would figure out how to do it no matter what. And and then I think if that's true, then that would actually cause a big shift. Like I am going to figure it out. And I think when you started doing that, you could like see some evidence of how you could, like actually you might have even pictured yourself not eating sugar and working it all out. And then you just started to become in belief that you could do it, that it was possible as you were figuring it out. I don't know.
And there's also a belief from other addictions that I've had of going cold turkey, like just stopping and then dealing with the emotions afterwards rather than this gradual weaning down, but actually just stopping and working on it straight away. So once I'd actually started and you get through the first day, doing extra research to reinforce that decision, to keep backing it up. So I kept researching, I kept looking at it, and I kept making plans like, oh, okay, I really love to have a snack at 10 o'clock at night. What can I snack on? And actually going and figuring out something and actually buying it and putting it beside the bed and having it there ready.
Yeah.
And like I've got a huge box of mixed nuts and I don't do well with some nuts. So I had to make my own. I bought all my individual nuts that I can eat that suits my body, and I put them together and I put them beside the bed. No chocolate, no dried fruit in it, just pure nuts. And I only need like a little handful. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's enough of that. And then I roll over and have a cup of tea and go back to sleep or whatever. And whereas before it was like, oh, I have a chocolate and now I feel hungry, and I kept feeding with lollies and biscuits, and it just kept going in and in and in, and then continually hungry.
Truthfully, sugar actually makes us more hungry, but besides that.
Particularly when you add a bit of salt to it
Right, right.
and a bit of fat.
Yum. I see your brain going, I can figure out how to make this easy. Like, I think that's the next belief is for you is like, I can make this easy. Like this doesn't have to be hard. I can make this easy on myself rather than like doing the struggle. You know, you're setting yourself up. Like you're already doing things to set yourself up for some success. And I don't know if you've seen so how you got to where you are now isn't just from this is like impossible. Where so you went from this is impossible to I'm totally doing this. And there's all those, if you go backwards, it's like if you rewind and you go backwards, I just interjected all of these different things like, it's possible I could do this, or I am going to figure out, like, I really, like, all of a sudden, the why, this like big, you had this big determination, but it was like, I'm going to figure out this out no matter what. And it's possible that I could make it work, right? There's all like you like lived in some possibility and then you just kept in that forward motion, with some other incremental thoughts and beliefs until now. What do you believe about yourself and your ability to like not have sugar or take care of your body?
Well, that's right. It's totally changed.
Yeah.
It has totally shifted. And it wasn't one tiny moment, was it? It's a whole lot of building up and reinforcement and believing, but it's also acting and doing.
Yes.
And there's a lot of also dress rehearsal in your mind.
Yes.
So you're actually practicing imagining what it's like. So this getting to I believe and changing changing it to something else, it's a long, slow process of hard work, isn't it?
No. No, it's not.
It was for me.
And the reason I say that is because you did this actually relatively quickly. Because when your doctor said you need to do this, you all of a sudden that you had some thinking that shifted you. And this is only January. This hasn't been that long. You believed that this was impossible to give up sugar for years. I'm just saying, Len. My opinion is that sometimes we make it difficult on ourselves to change our beliefs.
Yeah, and we make excuses.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes it difficult. That makes it the hard process. And for sure, sometimes we have some resistance to it. But if we can recognize, I think the work comes in just being open to recognizing what beliefs we have that hold us back. Like once you can recognize like, oh, I believe this is going to be impossible and you see it, it's like, oh, now what I would want to do. All of this is related to creativity, friends. All of it. Because it doesn't matter like if it's a belief about sugar or, I have a belief, like I had a belief that writing a book, an ebook was hard. I've never written one, but I already have done the belief work that I feel like it's easy now, or I can do it with ease and no stress. And I've not done one. I'm working on one right now. I probably talked about this a bunch of times, but anyway.
It's fascinating how they creep back into you, some of these beliefs though, isn't it?
Do you hate that I disagreed with you?
No, but like I have quite a few limiting beliefs, and one of them is that I'm poor at English and that I can't write.
Mm.
And the way I said that is its worst possible manifestation. And I know I can write. I've written hundreds of articles and published books and got lots of degrees with, theses and essays and stuff. And somehow I struggled my way through. So I obviously can write. But this, it doesn't, in its worst manifestation, it's that way. But in its sort of creeping in way, it becomes scary to write. Mm. And I lose the habit of it. So when I'm working at it regularly and I get into the habit, that belief gets lower and disappears with confidence and all those sort of things. And then if I let it sit for a long while or I have a crash, where someone says, oh, your writing's crap, or has something very negative to say about something that I've written, I crash and burn, and then I have to start building myself up again. And this is where I've worked very hard to change that, but it still lingers there and it still trips me up along the way. And that's really fascinating.
When we have something like that that's like sticky like that, it does manifest in different ways, right? And like you said, when someone says something like, "Oh, this is crap," what we all tend to do is like naturally, unless we're paying like really close attention to our brains, is to take that as actual evidence for our belief. Because when we have a belief in something, when we have this like belief about ourselves or whatever, we go and look for evidence that it's true. And so, of course, if someone says something, this is terrible, then we go, oh yeah, of course. And I'm also terrible. Right. And so we internalize this as like this hard evidence to back up the truthfulness of this thing, when we have actually so many more options. You have so many more options about what to believe in that moment. But because if we, and I do this too, if we have something that's sticky like that, we're like, yeah, of course, let me just gather all the evidence, because you actually feel better if you can gather the evidence, even though it does feel terrible too. It's kind of interesting. Our brains are so crazy.
There's a little bit of safety in saying I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think? Like
Yeah.
it's a safe space to be in. It's not risky. It's you're not challenging yourself. You're not. I think safe is a really lovely way of describing that immediate reaction. We do it as a protective measure, don't we? We say I
Yeah.
can't outwardly to someone else when they say that, so that we can put up a little wall around us and cocoon ourselves in there and go, well, that's okay. I've said no. And then I can come back to this when I'm ready or when I want to, right? Not when someone else is suggesting that I actually tackle this or do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when we're talking with someone else. But when we do that in our mind, we do that to ourselves too, don't we? Like we
Yeah, like
need to take the risk, and it's an emotional risk to question who we are and what we're doing. It's a feeling, and emotions get stirred up when we start to look at ways around it or challenging this brick wall that's appeared.
there's a lot of fear in that. I think for me, I like fear pops up. Like, what if I actually can't do it? So I'm trying to think, I'm actually trying to think what belief I have. I think I haven't uncovered it lately, but like, do I have some real beliefs holding me back? I'm sure I do. I'm not like I think we all kind of do. Um, So I'm picking at that right now. Like as we're talking, I'm like, what do I have that's keeping me from, you know, whatever, whatever I want to do. Mostly it has to do with my coaching business right now for some reason.
It's interesting that we talked about fear and safety because they're the same thing, aren't they? Like there's a it's because of the fear that we turn to something safe. And to step out of it, we have to go to that fearful spot. And uh, fear was, safe is about being now and very much a present thing. Fear is also very much a projection of, about what will happen, isn't it? What could happen? And this is where our brain really works against us when it starts making up imaginary scenarios that actually aren't true. They're just imagination things that appear that, oh, it could go wrong or this could happen. Or the biggest one for me is that you'll be judged.
Mm. Mhm. I think it's for a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's holds me back so much, is worrying about what other people think about me. And the reality is they're not thinking about me at all. Like, so I
Right.
have a worry about something that isn't even really exist, doesn't even exist.
I know it is really interesting what our minds do, and we do tend to figure out how to stay in our safe space. You know, that's what limiting beliefs do. They keep us in a little like cocoony spot, you know, that that in a weird way, in some ways it feels bad because we end up procrastinating and we judge ourselves or whatever it is. I'm just speaking for myself, how limiting beliefs, like what those do for me. I end up procrastinating or just, not doing something at all. If I have a belief that about myself, then uh, that I don't know is there, it usually just keeps me from like dreaming and imagining new things. And I don't even know that that's a thing. Um, I have a friend who speaks her belief into existence. So you can do that where you, this might be possible, I wonder if, this could one day be true for me. And my friends speak that maybe this is a little bit more advanced, but I think everyone can do it. You could literally, these are not necessarily positive affirmations. These are beliefs for you that you want to be true. So this is, she does this, you know, um, she starts them with I am capable of anything that I set my mind to and more, or something like that, or, um, I am a person that creates all the time I want for my creative pursuits. I mean, I love that thought. I think I just wrote that down for myself. I'm a person that I create all the time that I want for my creative work because I don't want time to limit me and I don't want my belief about time to limit me. So I'm actually in the process of this is what I'm in the process now of creating these things that I'm literally going to speak into existence. And I also remind myself of things I already believe about myself, right? Like I have a belief, sorry, you want to say something. I have a belief that I can create anytime, anywhere, or anytime or anywhere. I can create. Like that's possible for me. So I love that. I didn't used to believe that. And I totally believe it now. You're smiling. You guys, Lynn has this huge smile because I think for so many of us, like, that is such a freeing, like, if we all believed that, that's so freeing. What does that open up for me so much?
And we are what we believe we are, and we are what we act we are. We
Mhm.
are what we do. We are what we think we are. And so if we think we can't, we can't. And
We
if we think
don't.
we can, we can. Yeah, we don't.
We do.
Exactly.
Right.
And we can change that by changing the way that we think, um, and by what we believe. It's we know this is true, don't we? Both you
Right.
and I
But
know this is very true over years of experience and practice and seeing it, and yet we both still struggle with it in some way, or we're still working on little bits of it, and we haven't figured it all out. But we know that this is the path that we have to keep working on, um, to find our best selves.
right. I think an interesting way to go about this is to decide what results you want. Like, what is it that you want to be doing? Like, really want to be doing? Like, if nothing held you back, what would you do? And then you work backwards from there. Like, what would keep me from doing, what keeps me from doing this right now? And, or maybe not even that. What do I need to believe? What do I want to believe to make this come like come into existence, right? Like, what did you have to believe about yourself to create Len's Journal? Because that once upon a time was like an idea. I wonder if I just created this thing. And here, I can't tell you how many volumes I have right here where you can, that are so lovely.
Well, I had lots of tricks to that. I had someone to do it with. So I employed someone and it became their project as much as my project. And one of the ones that I worry about is being judged.
Mhm.
So by reducing the amount of my work in there and increasing other people's work in there, and not just making it about me, but making it about other people's art and what they're doing, um, I was able to address that, the things that were worrying me about it, um, to actually make it into a reality.
Right. And so what I am saying is a while however long ago, years ago, you had this idea
3
about
years.
yes, see, there you go.
We're in our
You had
4th year. It's so
right.
exciting.
And you had this idea that you wanted you wanted to see your work in print and maybe also celebrate other people. Whatever it was, you like I have this idea and I don't think that at that time you were like, I have this result I want to create. And so what do I need to believe? Right. Like we don't necessarily work like this, but we can do it intentionally if something feels like kind of big and, if we want to. And so it's kind of fun to go backwards and go, what was it about that? What was that belief that was driving you to then put all of those other things into motion, right? Like the belief was, um, I'm capable of creating like I can create this amazing publication. I don't know. It'd be interesting to like figure out what that was that created the result of me having all of these in my house in Texas because you have to start with that. You have to start with some thought or belief about yourself and what your abilities are.
It's one of the ones that drives me motivationally is inspiring other people and sharing that inspiration around with others. So, one of the biggest kickbacks, and I'm sure this was one of the drivers in the beginning, it's hard to remember because it is so long ago, is to inspire people. And, you sit down with the journal and you feel inspired to go and work on your own thing as you look at how individual everybody's work in there is and how creative it is and how beautiful it ties together as a series. I get so many letters of people saying it's an inspiration, and I find it inspiring when I wander through it, and it keeps me going and going. Well, you know, a series doesn't have to be a whole book or a lifetime work. It can be something that's created in an afternoon in a fish pond, or it doesn't have to be this huge opus that is judged uh, and something that's judged in a way that's fearful. It can be something quite small and beautiful and moving, and it can be inspiring for other people.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. I think you had a lot of these different kind of really open beliefs about what it would look like, what you were capable of doing, the belief about what it would do for other people. And if I thought about creating this journal, I'd be like freaked out. This is not something that's like, you know, but I also believe that if I decided to do the work to move it forward, that I could do that. I just am still a little freaked out about it. I would really have to like create some beliefs that would create that would make results that I wanted. So, but that's not a thing that it's not a driver for me like doing that. I have other things. I want to give a TED Talk one day. Is that crazy?
Well, no, it's not crazy. It's inspirational that you do. And things that people want to make and do need to come for a love of what you want to do and what you
Yeah.
love doing. So, watching TED Talks is important to you. And then imagining yourself up there doing that is important to you.
Believing that it's possible for me.
Yeah. And knowing that you have knowledge to share that is inspiring for other people is very important to you. And we need to make art that makes us excited for ourselves. So, a selfish way of saying this is I made Len's journal for me because it's what I want to have on my shelf is all this beautiful work. And I also want to see my own work in publication as well. And so that was driving me, and the TED Talk drives you, and it becomes a dream. And through imagining it and living it in our mind, it will actually manifest into reality.
Totally. You just said that, so I pulled out Steal Like an Artist. I'm gonna link to our episode about that, but his little Austin Kleon's like his little chapter 3 is write the book you want to read. And I think so often this is what we do. We create the thing that we see that there's space for. And sometimes when it feels like, or when we imagine that it's not or that it kind of goes against the norm, I think there can be some fear that creeps in that, and we have some belief that holds us back from doing that, right? Like, some sort of belief about what other people will be thinking, or I don't know. All I do know is, I know I just said I don't know. I do know that, because I just felt it in my body, that fear, that inhibits me every time. And when I create or when I'm working on something, I want it to feel open and flowing and easier. Not that the nature of the work is necessarily different, like easier or harder or whatever. Not that that changes, but it feels better. And that's always what I want. And I think by having some beliefs or leaning into beliefs that help us create that for ourselves, I think our creative work is always better when we can feel more open and things flow easier and all of those things, versus like the other way, which feels like stifled and halting and scary.
It's like we've got to get out of our way, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We've got to get out of the artwork's way. We've got to get out of our own way to make art that we connect with. Like it's the biggest battle is with our minds, isn't it? And I think this idea about our beliefs and addressing them and working on them as an artist is incredibly powerful. And so many of our episodes are about this, aren't we? That we come back
Yes.
to what do we say about ourselves? What do we do? How do we work around our negative selves? Like so many
Mm-hmm.
of the tricks and tips in our bag of tricks are actually to get around when we get in the way of ourselves, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking that it's something that you might want to do if you find yourself stuck in this, because we like to do this, right? Like we want to talk all around it, but all for some uh, like even some minor help. But if you see yourself kind of stuck in this way, you can do a couple things. One, you can ask yourself, like, what would this be like if it were different? Or like, could this be done? Could there be another way? If you find yourself going, I can't, or I don't know if, or I don't know how, or feeling like there's some big resistance. I'm not saying we never have resistance. I think that's kind of a natural thing in anything we do, including art. Um, but I think just even recognizing that we don't have to believe any of those things that come to us. Like just because we think, um, I can't, or this is going to be difficult, doesn't mean it's true and doesn't mean it has to continue to be true for you. And I think that's such a huge thing. If you just even start questioning that, then it will loosen up other possibilities for what you are capable of, or what's for your future.
Mm, very much so. Very much so.
Len's shaking his head, yes. I think we just had a little Brie coaching session. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah,
We coach each other, and we hope everyone else learns from that process as well.
right.
The- sometimes we wander off into facilitating each other, and that's a good thing.
Or
And
disagree.
that's a very, very good thing. Or disagreeing.
And the thing is, the reason why we're having these discussions and why we do what we do is like with Len's journal, it's for ourselves. We always are doing this work for ourselves first. And which is why we're talking about beliefs, because we're both thinking about it now. And I am working on speaking new beliefs into existence. I love this idea. So yeah, I can tell you next year maybe how that goes.
Oh, well, maybe you need to get into some Joe Dispenza's work.
Mm.
Have you been into that yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay. That might be an interesting spot for you to explore. As I'm only starting, so when I know a bit more, I will let you know. But he argues very, very clearly that we are what we believe we are. And we can change that by changing what we say and what we do and what we imagine about ourselves. It's so, so pertinent as a creative, isn't it?
Yes, because our work is so highly personal. It has everything to do with what we believe about ourselves. I mean, we're not just getting up and doing the dishes, right? We're not tying our shoes or deciding what shirt to wear. All those things take beliefs for sure. But creative work is so highly personal, and I think there's so much opportunity to feel so amazing about it, but also feel so sensitive about it too, and or both at the same time. And when we have beliefs that when we have certain beliefs about ourselves that open up our creativity and our world, it's literally mind-blowing. It truly is. It's awesome.
Yeah, we get caught when we worry about what other people think, don't we? Like we both talked about that today. And by the nature of art, we make stuff and inevitably, well, not always, but we often show other people and then we get caught up in worrying about what other people think about it. And we end up down this, it's a furphy, really worrying about what other people think about your art.
Well, it sounds like I don't know if this will be good enough, or the belief behind it is I can't make something that's good enough for what or other people or whatever that is, right? There's always that good enough.
A good one to have let go and work on is perfection. And we've talked about that in episodes in the past too, but that becomes a limiting belief. If we hang on to it, we never finish anything because it's not perfect enough for us. And that is a really good example of something that gets in our way that can be shifted in our minds.
Yeah. And you can ask yourself all those questions that I did, right? Like, what if there was another way? What if I tried, I can try to do this and see. Even that belief that we're willing to experiment and see what happens when we do it differently and collect new data. I tell my clients, I'm like, every time you try something or you make a decision or whatever, we're just collecting some data and then deciding what to do with it next. It really takes the pressure off of how like emotional it feels. We're just trying something with like low stress. It's okay if it works or not. We just try, oh, we don't like that, or this is what we want to do different. We just try something different the next time. It's really not a big deal. That's literally what life is. It literally what like art is, all of it. It's just one big whole experiment. And if you're not willing to like do more, like do the experiment in the process, then you're just not going to do anything.
One of my ways with that when I'm on a trip, or in a workshop with people is I give them permission to make um, poor art. Like, give yourself the break of trying to make something beautiful. Just make something that just experiment. Let the let the magical ones evolve and come out of there without you pushing it so hard. And that works just magic. Like people go, oh, yeah, actually, I thought I had to do really good. I had to be my best,
Yeah.
and being vulnerable and not being your best is, and when we relax into it, the beautiful art and the really good art just emerges in that process.
I see your clients shifting their mental not little, but their mental status from this has to be amazing, or maybe they're even trying to impress you even, I don't know, to not this doesn't matter, because I think art matters, but it's more like I can just try this and it's okay. Like I think that belief of I can try things and it's okay, or even I don't have to be, I'm the person that doesn't have to be tied to, the outcome of what I create. I can enjoy my process. Like we have so many beliefs in there that we can just, that if we have those, things feel easier and we relax more. And you're right. The more we can do that, the better the art gets. Eventually, maybe
Mm.
in that moment, you don't make something that's like, wow, crazy amazing. But over time, it really, you've opened yourself up and it does get better. And that is really important to come, like if someone comes to one of your workshops, you call them workshops?
I do both. I do tours and I do workshops and I do retreats. Well, that's three, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So they all do different things. But if someone
That's right.
comes to you and you're like, hey, could you, by saying, could you just let this go? It's like, could you shift your belief for just a minute, or release that and lean into this one?
Mm.
And if they're willing to, maybe it feels scary a little bit, but if they're willing to just try and experiment and collect some data, then it works. And I love that about a mentor, to be able to help us see what the thing is that might be holding us back, and then encouraging us to step forward with courage. Like you don't have to be super confident about it. You just step forward with a little bit of courage. You can have some fear behind it. It's okay. And just try the thing. And I think that that is part of the belief shifting, is leaning into like a new possibility and trying the thing. And I just think that's always important. And we always have to have that when we're creating, is a healthy dose of courage, to kind of get started or move forward or do something new and different. I do. I need it.
It's fascinating how often that happens when you're with a mentor, isn't it?
Hmm.
There's they have a slightly different external viewpoint of you, and can often add just little comments and suggestions that release and shift people and, challenge some of these beliefs and get to the bottom of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a great joy of teaching and helping people, is helping people change and find their way through these things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the thing is like you might not, I do this, like I'll go and get some coaching, or I'll talk to someone and someone will say, "Hey, I think this is what's keeping you stuck." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know." Right? So I think so often a mentor or a coach or someone can help us recognize those things that we didn't even know to begin with. And that's part of what's really beautiful about, because we're all stuck in our own heads. Absolutely are. We're all stuck in our own brains. And when someone from the outside can kind of look in and go, "Hey, have you thought about this?" Or "I think this is what's holding you back. Might you try this?" Then all of a sudden our worlds can open up. And that to me has been really amazing, in so many different, so much of my process. So it's amazing. Shifting beliefs is so huge. I always say, if you want different results, you have to have different beliefs than you do right now. So new results, new beliefs. It's just an equation, right? And there's all this stuff in the middle. But when we can have that, those two, like if you want this, you might want to believe this over here. And that actually pushes you to get the results that you want. And it usually feels really amazing. You'll press yourself. Like I do sometimes, like you did with your sugar. Aren't you impressed?
Yes.
I know you said you were bragging, but I think it's more of like celebrating that you shifted out of something that was really hard and you're doing something that you thought was going to be really hard. And it's amazing.
Yeah. And how uplifting it is. And sharing your success, I think that's a really important step as an artist, to celebrate and to talk about and to show, but without that fear of being judged for it. But to do it just from an enjoyment perspective. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Well, are we finished?
Yes, we've come to the end, haven't we?
Yes. Okay. So last thing, this is not what we usually do, because right now we usually say goodbye. So right now we've talked about, in this episode, we've talked about all of the things that Len offers, which are workshops, tours, and escapes. And I also think your artist club too, right? There's discussions in there that are uplifting and can help people too.
Oh, definitely. And it's an incredibly special place. We've actually just made some advertisements for it that explain how it works. So if you drop in there, you'll see a bit more explanation now that we've got it working and we're trying to get more people to join. I've also, in the next few weeks, I'll be running a whole lot of online courses in monochrome photography and bookmaking, and working with the nude figure as well. So if anyone wants to study with me from anywhere in the world, that is very highly possible. But to attend something with me, you'll have to come to Australia. And I've got lots of offerings and tours and workshops in person here, if anyone's interested.
The fun thing is that you can get mentorship with Len in such a variety of ways, which is awesome. This is not necessarily why I picked beliefs, but it just happens to coincide. When this episode comes out, I'll have already started a belief shifting challenge using sticky notes. It's super easy. It's super fun. And I'm doing coaching through it. It's actually really easy to do. And we're going to speak them into existence in a specific way. And I show you how to do it. And it's going to be really amazing. So I'll be doing that. And I'm going to put a link in the episode description if you want to join that. So I'm really excited about this because I think it's so important. And we so often think it's so hard. And I'm telling you, it's so easy. I'm so glad we talked about this. I'm so pumped about shifting my own beliefs this year, Len. Seriously.
It is exciting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very exciting.
I'm ready to do amazing things. More amazing things. I'm already doing amazing things.
I've got more to work out and more to work on yet. So I'm excited to see what happens around those.
Right. Yep. More adventures, more new stuff. I guess that's it. We've talked for a long time. This was really fun. I think I had a lot to say.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a good episode and it's been wonderful talking to you, Brie. And we look forward to talking again and sharing some more of our knowledge and discussing wonderful things about creativity. So it's goodbye from me.
And
it's goodbye from Brie.
Yes. And thank you again, Len, for being vulnerable, because we really appreciate it. I love that we can do this in our conversation. So that's it. Bye, y'all. Well, wasn't that fun? As we close another episode of A Creative Affair, would you click on your podcast player and leave us a 5-star review and share with another passionate creative like yourself? Thanks. To find out more about our creative work and mentoring, visit Len at lenschool.com or me, Brie, at creativemindscoach.com.